now ready to create your manual prototype. Start off by designing a table of contents. Download all your thoughts about every working system in your organization now. And maybe looking at other organizations similar to you with a similar model, what other systems or processes do they have in place that could be in your table of contents? Being innovative, you may want to look at other complementary industries or other industries totally outside the box that have those systems or processes that would truly innovate in your industry. And maybe you want to merge those into yours. So you could organize it by product or service type or by customer type, but you make a list. What is your prototypical table of contents? What is your manual prototype? Next, define your fort protection system. Your fort is a superior skill that you have a passion for. Most business owners I talk to are only spending 10% of their time on activities that give them energy and create the most value for internal and external customers. So they spend their time using 90% of their brain power on what I call stuff. And stuff is what is allergic to the fort. Think of the fort symbolically as to how you built it when you were a kid. One, you made it so strong that it was fortified. It was a fort that no one could break. And two, your fort was protected. The hazards, the predators were kept out, the enemies, and there was sort of a membership, a pecking order as to who could enter. Well, think of your fort this way. In your business, you have stuff. You have distractions, you have interruptions, you have interference, roles, tasks that truly are predatory. In other words, they would take away and rob you like a vampire sucking dry of your best use of time, your time spent on your fort. Those are the dangers. Also, your fort needs to be strong enough, clear enough, confident enough, crafted enough, skillful enough to where it's buzzworthy, and when you do it, it is truly authentic. It is the factory-made aptitude and wired-in skill that you've always known, and kids, people growing up have told you this is really where you're outstanding. Now, there may be things that you're doing that you're brilliant at, but if they don't give you energy, that is not defined as your fort. Your fort is your best skill. It's the thing that you do that is your brand DNA. It sets you apart. It's when somebody looks at you and says, "My golly, there's a genius here. This is somebody who does something, and I admire and respect this person for doing this. And I remember him, I remember her for doing this thing." So your fort protection system is this. What items outside your fort need to be delegated within the next 6 months? Now, so you make a list, and I call it a demand inventory. And your demand inventory is all of the responsibilities, the tasks, the activities, the roles, the stuff that you do that does not give you energy. And I'll give you 3 categories. You do things that you do poorly. You have things that you do adequately, par, what I call par. And then you have things that you do excellently, but they don't give you energy. But people comment on it as some of your best work. In fact, they say you're brilliant at it, but it still doesn't give you energy. So make a list of all of these items, and then one by one itemize which you're going to focus on over the next 6 months, and we need to create a system for it. So what are those going to be? We're going to protect your fort. We're going to create a supportive environment around you so that your fort is not hidden, invisible. We want to elicit it, bring it out. Spend 50 to 80% of your time on it. Next, what are your hard systems? Your infrastructure, your backbone, your information system, your data storage system. Do you have a place where you collect customer data? What is your security system? Do you have an appropriate firewall system built up? So all of your management information systems, your hard systems, your desks, your chairs, your computers, things that you could tangibly see, lift, hold, these are your hard systems. Your physical space plan, does it lend itself to having a productive workplace? You know, you're looking at sort of the capsule, the hard part of the egg that's around the soft part, the yolk. And that egg that encapsulates, is it supportive? How is it designed? What do people know? What do they need to know about it? How do you define that system? Next, sales and marketing. And this is going to be a long list. So I'll go through this slowly, and if you need to, you can rewind this so you can hear all of these, but there are some major components in sales and marketing. And the reason I say this is sales and marketing are the lifeblood of your business. If you didn't have a sales machine, you would not have anything else. The field of dream syndrome, if we build it, they will come, can't stand only as a business success motto. You have to attract and create buyers and maintain them. And marketing is the intentional process of creating and maintaining clients by virtue of what you say and do. You say and do things to create and maintain clients. So the first question I would have for you in the sales dimension, sales is the actual transaction where you convert a lead into a customer. So they go through a series of steps. Now in the sales piece, how do you compensate your sales team? There's a decision that you need to make. How do you compensate your sales team? Do you compensate them on a base? Do you compensate them on a base plus commission? Do you do a draw on commission? How do you compensate them? Do you offer a guarantee, whereas if they hit a certain amount, they're guaranteed to go up to this benchmark? How are you going to compensate your salespeople? Is it comparative to the industry? What does the industry typically pay your salespeople? What is your compensation system for sales? This should be written and documented. Next, what steps are taken to generate leads? How do you generate leads for your business? You can do impersonal, you can do personal marketing. Personal marketing would be more like networking, personal selling, strategic alliances. It's very relational. It could mean referrals. It could mean that you deliver speeches, things that people touch you personally, see you, feel you, hear you, and therefore they are stimulated to be resourceful, stimulated to interact with you in a sales way, either referral or direct. How else are you going to generate leads? Well, there's an impersonal way. Television, radio, trade shows. You could be doing direct mail. You could be doing flyering. You could be doing pay-per-click advertising, web ads, banner ads, and the list goes on and on and on. Promotional products. You could be putting your names on shirts, hats. You could be more institutional. You could do magazine ads. You could be doing classified advertising. So it's really deciding a wide range. Think of it like a Parthenon. You have 5 different columns that hold the roof up, and the roof of the Parthenon is the financial component. And in those columns, you have a diversified set of lead generation strategies that you've set up. And that way, you're not diving boarding, as Jay Abraham would say, on one particular tactic. You are diversifying your risk because you know that all of them aren't going to pull at one time. So you are relying on the spread of different columns, and the columns support the strength of the structure. So what steps are taken to generate leads? What mediums are used to stimulate a lead? And mediums are channels. What are the mediums? Are the mediums direct mail? What are the channels that you use? And you need to define those. What are those mediums or channels? How are you going to get in front of that potential client? Next, what is your target market? Who is your customer? What are their demographics? Define your ideal client criteria. What are their needs? Who are they? When you create a mission for your organization, that mission should include the predisposition that your clients have, or different clients for different products. So who is your client? Who is your best lead? Where are they? What are they thinking? What do they read? Who do they hang out with? How do they think? What is their lifestyle? Do they smoke? What kind of car do they drive? Are they married or are they divorced? Are they upper scale in income or are they middle class? Are they male? Are they female? Are they religious? Are they agnostic? Who are they? Do they appreciate a certain type of service? Do they have a certain type of style? Where do they spend their time? What do they like to do for fun? Harvey Mackay, in Swimming with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive, a very famous book, sold millions of copies, talks about the Mackey 55. And there are 55 answers that you should know about your customer. The more information you know about your customer, the more value-driven you can be. No question. And the more capable you will be of contacting your customer via these mediums with messages that are going to resonate with their current predisposition. They want to know you understand them. They want to know you speak their vocabulary. They want to know that at the end of the day, you are somebody who is a specialist in solving their problems, a specialist in meeting their needs, a specialist who can advise and educate them on how to have a better life, how to take delivery of your product in the best way possible, how to make good decisions about people in business like you. What is the phone script for answering phones? I go into organizations and I see them lacking phone protocols. Who is in charge in your organization of teaching others your phone skills? Make one person in your organization in charge of being the phone expert. And so they're in charge of getting the best information about phone etiquette, do's and don'ts, pacing, intonation, maybe some neurolinguistic programming, NLP, mirroring. And so everyone in the organization these days is using the phone. Why not be upgrading the phone skills in your organization? What are the key positions that need phone scripts for answering phones? Receptionist, for example. Maybe you're a salesperson, your customer service person, your product knowledge person, project manager. So look at all the different roles in your organization. What is the phone script for answering phones if they answer the phone in their position? And then traditionally, overall, generalistically, how is the organization answering the phone? If I pick up the phone book and go to the landscaping industry, for example, and I call 10 landscaping companies, I'll bet you I won't be able to tell them from a goat. They will all sound the same. So this is an area where you can define a competitive strategy. Your very first date is that phone call. It's been said that the receptionist is the most important person in the company because they're the host. They're the ones that give the perceived image of the rest of the organization. It's the first act. It's the opening act that leads you to believe the singer's going to be good once the comedian leaves the stage. It sets the tone for the entire interaction. Don't underestimate the power of this process. What is the phone script for an initial call with the prospect? There should be specific steps and guidelines as to what that initial phone script is. And maybe on that phone script you have a list of the most common objections, maybe 5, 10, and then you have comebacks like Karate Kid. Here's what he would do if the blow was thrown. Here's your answer to this. Here's your answer to this. Now there's so many different personalities, so many different customers, so really go broad on this. Think of maybe 20 if you'd like to. Think of more. What are the possible responses? Your people should be equipped to handle those. Again, every single comeback they have is one less question they have to get you involved with. And again, you free yourself up. What steps need to be taken to fulfill that initial call? What's the structure? What's the beginning? What's the end? What is your initial call process? What steps need to be taken? How do they orient the call? How do they open the call? How do they end the call? What are the steps? What information does the buyer need to be knowing? What information needs to be gathered? And so what is the next scene that leads to? Thinking about what the next step is, how does that initial call need to end, and what information needs to be passed on or kept or maintained? So what data needs to be collected and stored or managed from that process? What is your system for cultivating referrals from current clients? Do you have a referral system? How do you orient the client around the referral process? Do you do it at the time of the first transaction? Do you educate them about referrals? How do you get them involved in a referral system? What is the benefit to them of that referral system? What are they responsible for in that referral system? How does it work? Who needs to be taught it in your organization? What is your raving fan system to convert a customer into a raving fan? How do you take them in the loyalty ladder from a prospective client target to a suspect who is qualified in their needs, to a trier of your services or product, to a customer, to becoming a loyal customer, to becoming a raving fan? Think that through. How does that process work? How do you convert a lead into a raving fan? Someone who walks the earth, who wants to rave about you because it was so good they had to. Define your customer nurturing program. What proactive communication system could you deploy to nurture customers? Would you send out birthday cards? What information would you give them? How would you educate them about your industry or trends or what else to buy or special discounts? What happens after a customer becomes a customer? What happens next? How do you nurture that customer? Do you surprise them with appreciation? Do you have luau's so that they can all come into customer appreciation night and feel rewarded and engaged? How do you nurture that customer along? How do you get to them before they get to you? It's been said that one of the biggest losses in business today is we don't make enough contact with the customer. How many times do you contact the customer? What do you say on those intervals? What is the customer really expecting? What's too much? What's too little? What are other companies doing in their customer nurturing program? Where can you take advantage of this opportunity to differentiate? Define your SOI program. Your SOI program are spheres of influence. These are intermediary relationships. They don't directly buy, but these are people who can refer you, strategic alliances, complementary companies, host-beneficiary relationships. What is your SOI program? How do you involve them? How do they contain your message? How do you create a monkey-proof way where they could pass you on? Do you create media? Do you create a website for them to introduce? Do you create an introductory letter, an endorsement letter for them? Do you create a CD that they could pass on with a 10-minute Q&A? What do you do to help an SOI perpetuate your business? What systems or steps are to go in place to develop strong alliances and spheres of influences? How do you keep track of them? How long do you interface with them? Do you go to lunch with them every 90 days? Do you place a call to them? How do you stimulate their business? How do you create a reason to move forward? I know I'm throwing a lot of questions out here for it, but I'm thinking you'll probably take what you feel is most important. So how many times will you touch a customer after the sale, and within what time frame? I go back to that. That's a critical question in your customer nurturing program. Define your immediate after-sales service program. What steps are necessary to wow a customer within 21 days after the initial sale? It's important to do that. So if you're in the insurance business and you give them their insurance policy, what's going to happen within the next 21 days? Are they going to get a starter kit? Are they going to get a welcome to XYZ company? What's in there? What happens next? Is there a special gift that they're sent? Are they prompted for referrals? You need to think about this. What is your immediate after-sales service program? List out your step-by-step process for selling. A sales process, including key milestones and buying decisions. What are the buying decisions that the buyer will go through? Is the first decision, do I need to listen to this company or person? Is the next decision, is this company somebody that I trust to admit my pain or problem? Maybe the next question is does the solution this company provide, does it align well with my budget? You see, there's a buying cycle that goes on, and when your sellers are out of alignment with that buying cycle, there's a potential loss. So how do the buyers buy? How do you help them define their needs? Second, how do you help them define the right solution? And third, how do you define the capabilities that you'll be providing to position yourself as a superior solution in the buyer's mind? What steps are taken? What scripts, what structures, what processes are in place for you to effectuate that, to help the buyer buy and still feel in control of the process? They're buying. You are facilitating that. Define your criteria or methods you use to qualify your leads. What distinguishes a qualified lead? Do you have a system for it? How do you know when one is? How do you know when one's not? What is the difference between an inquiry and a qualified lead? What questions need to be asked to qualify a decision maker, to qualify the financial component, to qualify the need, to qualify the amount of time that you're going to need to do a needs analysis or a further appointment to diagnose? Next, define your pipeline management system, tracking a lead to a close. What is your average sales cycle? What data needs to be stored in order to follow up with opportunities when they're ready? How do you ripen the fruit over a period of time patiently, taking a lead through a grading system from A to B to C to D to E to the final close, and then the follow-up? How do you grade those pipeline residents? What steps espouse those pipeline grades so that you could grade those pipeline people with a sense of predictability? For example, from A to B, what are your ratios? If A to B is the initial call to the appointment, what are the ratios? From B to C, from the appointment to the needs analysis, and then proceeding further, what's the hit ratio? To a close and getting a contract signed and a check, what's the hit ratio? So that you have a way of forecasting your sales process, and you can assimilate or assess where a sales producer or even yourself is going to land within 90 days. And what kind of volume they're going to be looking at based on fallout ratios and conversion ratios. So make a list of key scripts using unique names or labels to memorialize each key step or milestone in the process. For example, power qualifying or initial call prompter or comprehensive needs analysis. Again, it's equitable. Define the steps in your proposal assimilation and deployment activities. Do you use proposals in your sales process? How do those proposals work? When do you use them? How do you make sure that proposals are not the decision vehicle? They shouldn't be. Proposals are a summary of what was discussed previously. Because when a person gets a proposal and that has new information in it, suddenly you've lost control. So how do you eliminate the mistake of proposal delays? When I look at the proposal, I will get back to you. You've just lost control. How do you use proposals to your advantage? How should those proposals be made? Is there a form? Is there a template that you should have in place that guides the population of information into that proposal? Is it online? Is it in a computer system? Is it mail merged? What is your proposal assimilation and deployment activity system? Next, what's your lifetime value of a client? It's been said that the only way to make an effective decision on a marketing cost is to define the true lifetime value of a client. For example, as a coach, traditionally clients might stay with me for 36 months. So if I evaluate a $500 pay-per-click advertising opportunity, I know that if I earn $75,000 in coaching fees over those 36 months, I know that $500 is certainly viable. It's blatantly obvious. And if I know those conversion rates, even better. So what's your lifetime value of a client? Describe your system for expanding it. How could you lengthen the lifetime value of your client? How could you lengthen the relationship? What could you do to eliminate any threats of them going to the competition? What is your process for expanding the average size of a transaction? It's been said that there are 3 ways to grow your business. 1 is to increase your number of clients. Number 2 is to increase the average size transaction. So what is your process for expanding the average size of a transaction? Are you selling packages? Could you bundle things together? If you're a contractor, could you make an estimate or bid on other work like demolition, doors, flooring, masonry, landscaping? What else could you be offering that someone might be writing checks for to increase the initial sale or increase the ongoing sale? How could you create more value through the customer by offering something else they'd enjoy buying at the time they buy something you're offering? Third, how do you increase the frequency of repurchase? How do you increase the number of times that buyers buy within X time frame? If they buy an average of 4 times per year, what could you do to get them to buy 8 times per year? Is there an extra service that you could add on? Is there something additional that you could bring to them? Could you be upselling? Could you create an add-on? Could you create additional value for them? What is your system for doing that? How can you elongate that frequency of repurchase process? What steps are in place to do that? What systems need to be put in place to propagate that? Next, what is your system for addressing objections with comebacks? Traditionally, toward the close of the sale, there are predictable objections in your business. You may have learned some on your own. What is your system or set of scripts of comebacks on how to handle those intelligently? Next, define your process for getting to the decision makers, the power person. What happens when you're not talking to one? What happens when you're selling a person who is a see-more, somebody who needs to see more in the organization? What happens when you're talking to someone who's a looky-loo, but they're not the real decision maker? What happens when you're talking to the gatekeeper? What is your gatekeeper strategy? How do you get by the gatekeeper? How would somebody go about those calls? What about a personal appointment setter? There's not only gatekeepers, but sometimes we have assistants that take care of our schedule. How do you get to Mr. Very Important Top Officer getting through that individual? How do you get to the decision maker? What is your process for doing that? Do you sell your way up? Do you graduate your way up the ladder, or do you shoot high? How do you handle that process? What are the steps? Articulate the steps or protocols for making cold calls effectively. Inevitably, companies make cold calls. It's very frustrating. However, it's still an effective way to do business. So if telemarketing is an aspect of your business, what is your protocol set for making cold calls effectively? Do's, don'ts, rules of the road, guidelines, steps, activities, comebacks, scripts, systems, preparation for the cold calls, and how you take the data from the cold calls and put them somewhere. So if you designate a person in your organization like a contact representative or a telemarketing school or a department, then you simply have a system for making cold calls effectively. Next, what is your sales algorithm? What is the mathematical formula of probable conversion rates? from initial calls to contacts to qualified leads to appointments to closes. What is your system for managing time between new business cultivation versus follow-up on leads moving through the pipeline? What is a traditional ratio? How much time should be spent on prospecting, and what's the schedule for that? And how much time should be spent on following up on the pipeline? How do you define that structure? What steps, forms need to be completed, protocols or checklists need to be in place for someone to balance that out to maximize results? How do you schedule your prospecting? How do you schedule your pipeline management? Is there a master schedule? Is it authenticated to the producer? Is it per product? Do you divide the week up? Do you thematically time block out certain times to cultivate business and work your pipeline? How do you put it together? What is your system for profiting on old or inactive leads? Could they be profitable to somebody else? Could you package that list and sell it at a premium? Is there something you could do to get back with old leads to sell them an additional product? Could you reactivate them if you've been out of contact, out of sight, out of mind for a while? What could you do to cultivate business from your inactive or old useless leads? Next, define your steps to reactivate past client relationships. What is your system for activating past clients? Is there something else that you could provide for them? Is there a referral system that they would enjoy referring you with? How could you utilize past client relationships to your advantage? What steps are in place to do that? Next, define your pre-steps that occur before the sale to increase success. How do you increase the emotional commitment of the potential client before the first step even happens? Do you require them to do something? Do they need to fill something out? Do they need to complete a ladder of preferences that basically locks in their current criteria for buying? Do they need to come over and pick something up? How can you get them so far into the process that it's really hard to turn back? What could you ask them to do or request them to do to feel that they've already gone so far forward they'd feel guilty going anywhere else? What is that pre-step process? What do you send them? What do you request from them? What do you have them do? What do they fax you? What do they fill out? What are they required to do before they become qualifiable on your side to earn time with you? It's takeaway. What do they have to do to earn your time? Define all the types of lead generation that you use. Like I said, it's very important that you do this. Print, broadcast, electronic, display, outdoor, direct response, personal, impersonal advertising, events, promotions, publicity, public relations, word of mouth. And then designate who would be responsible for those. So once we've identified those mediums, again, I bring this up because who in your organization is going to be responsible for running that? Are you going to have a marketing coordinator that's going to deploy people to these activities? How do you integrate the roles, the people who are going to take hand of these systems? What kind of activities do they need to be doing in their work descriptions that would help these things run effectively? Are there certain qualities, facets, aspects of them that need to be taken care of to deliver them well? Is there direct mail administration that needs to be done? Is there a direct response advertising prep that needs to be done? Is there a direct mail letter that needs to be fulfilled? Are there promotional flyers that need to be completed? Are those graphic design components needing help? What are those expectations, standards, checklists, protocols there? Public relations. Are there PR releases that need to be done? Publicity. What else needs to be done there? Who needs to be spoken with? These are key systems and steps and deployments that need to be done by certain individuals who will be most capable and strong to do these. Project on average how many people you reach with each lead generation method. How many of those people are in your target market? Project the percentage of your market that you reach with each lead generation method. How many of those people have you reached that become leads? What is the cost per person reached? What is the total lead generation cost? Describe your subjective criteria and apply this to your lead generation channels. A fit with your target market, a fit with your company, the impact, credibility, intimacy. In your lead generation message, what is your attention getter? The information content, the points of persuasion. What is your call to action? What is your irresistible offer? What steps could be taken to improve your lead generation message, creating the right impression? How else could you provide a convenient way for the customer to respond to your lead generation message? What is your system for sending inquiries requested information immediately? What is your system for sending inquirers requested information immediately? Define what to send in response to different types of inquiries. Define which printed materials are ready to go for those who prefer them. Define which would have electronic versions for those who prefer email or web download. Describe what steps would capture all inquiries into a database for ongoing nurturing and qualification efforts. Define which data entry people to get the inquiries. Define which data entry people to get the inquirers into your database quickly. What is your system to nurture or cultivate your not yet qualified leads? Define your prospect relationship stay in touch ripening system to keep in touch with longer term prospects until they're identified as being qualified and ready for salespeople's attention. So what is your stay in touch system? See, they're not in the process yet. They're not in the pipeline. These are people that are still targets. So how do you continue to stay in front of them? How many times do you contact them? Do you follow the rule of 7? You contact them 7 times and then give up? Or do you do the eat what you kill, operate by results? I'm going to continue to contact you until you haul me out and tell me to go away, or you acquiesce to my service. Persistence breaks down resistance. How do you do it? How do you further identify the needs and situations that they have so you can discern if they're ready for sales? What program is in place to track and measure the results of your sales lead generation, cultivation, and sales follow-up programs? What system can you discern your cost per lead, cost per qualified lead, cost per sale, and return on investment? What system is in place to evaluate that? How could you prove that your lead generation programs are paying off in increased sales and market share? What system would track the number of hours per week you're spending on prospecting? How many days are systematically dedicated to money-making activities every month or quarter? Where do you and your staff co-view this input to interact effectively? How many days are systematically dedicated to maintenance, cleanup, and upgrading your organization per month? And where do you and or your staff co-view that to interact in the most effective way? What steps are in place to remove you from having an office? Do you need one to make money? I think not. Your money is made out in the marketplace. What information, technology, and resources are suitable to you doing business from your car, on the road? Is it set up to react and respond to the monetary, momentary opportunities that come up at unexpected times? What is your step-by-step system for scanning, inputting new business cards? Do you have a sales database? What technology is needed to have an email permission list, a list server? Define your steps or protocols for maintenance of your website, sales site, tracking traffic. Make a list of all forms, contracts, and agreements that are required to make sales, with templates and illustrations on how they work. List all collateral, leave behinds, and presentation materials designed to support sales and promotion. Now, I've given you a very lengthy list. You're probably going to need to go back and listen again and take this step by step. So go back through it again. Also, keep in mind that in the undercurrents of all of these decisions, the style and manner in which you do this, again, ask yourself, does this get my unique selling proposition across? Is the way we're doing this, the interaction, the steps, does it engender the unique selling proposition? And how can I better position what I'm selling? The irresistible offer. How can I position my offer better as an undercurrent quality, a standard by which all of these systems will be designed? Think of it like a pyramid. The base of the pyramid is your irresistible offer and your unique selling proposition. All of the subsystems, the steps, the documented manuals, the checklists, the forms, the templates, at the end of the day, at the end of the line, above all, speak those messages.